Welcome to the Town of Wheatfield Board meeting for August 8th of 2016. This evening we do have a public hearing before a regular meeting, and the public hearing is on the rural residential district and possibly changing some of the code. These recommendations are coming from the task force, so today we have Richard Muscatello and Drew Riley. Drew is a consultant for the task force. Gentlemen, in your hands.
Thank you very much, and good evening. Does anybody need a handout? I had some handouts. Okay. Tonight we're talking about, as the supervisor stated, we have a comprehensive plan implementation task force that implements the plans of the town. We recently adopted an agricultural protection plan, and one of the strong recommendations of the agricultural protection plan was it noted the fact that in the town we have an agricultural residential district and a rural residential district, that a lot of the farming in the town is in the rural residential district of the town, which is basically the northeastern part of the town along the eastern boundary. And they noted the fact that, which we all noted, that we have all these farms in the RR district, and farming is not allowed in the RR district. Although someone would say you can continue to farm because you're not existing non-conforming use, you continue to farm, but it could present some problems to a farmer in the future if they stop farming for a year or tried to sell the property or whatever for a farm. We really don't. The town doesn't allow farming in an RR district. So we had two choices. They looked at either rezoning some of that land back to agricultural residential or allowing agriculture in an RR district. Rezoning property is always a difficult thing to do, changing somebody's zoning on the property. So we took the route of and made a recommendation to amend the RR district to allow agricultural uses. In your handout, you're going to see a list of what would be allowed in that zoning district, and you'll say, well, Drew, where did you come up with that, in the task force, where did you come up with that list of uses? It's the exact uses that are listed in the agricultural residential district. We just took that and made some small modifications because they did allow things that, like boarding houses and things that we didn't think were suitable to the RR district. Now, when we propose zoning laws or any kind of laws, we have public hearings on them. We send them to the county. We get input from the town board. We get input from a lot of different people. So we're here to get input from the public, but I'm here to tell you tonight we're not going to be adopting this law tonight because we do have to make some slight revisions. Someone pointed out the fact that, and here sometimes all good deeds go unpunished, we put in there that we would allow agricultural in an RR zone. Well, we thought about this and said, well, we have a bunch of residential subdivisions in this area also, and when someone comes along and say, I own a half-acre piece of property in this subdivision, I want to now do farming in my residential lot. Probably would create a lot of problems. So we do want to put an exclusion clause, and I've already written in there, but I want to hear comments first from the town board and others if we need to make other revisions. That revision would state that these agricultural uses would have to be on a certain size lot, an existing farm or a certain size lot, or specifically excluding any residential lots in subdivisions or lots below 2 acres in size. So that's already a great comment we got. We're going to go back and make that as a change to this because we don't want to create those conflicts of allowing agricultural uses on existing residential properties. That is not the purpose of that transition between agricultural residential and rural residential, but we do want to acknowledge those farms. So first I usually turn to the town board because you've already had some good questions on this, and then I'll let the supervisor open it up to the public. Any questions from the town board on this proposal that is recommended by the way, I forgot to mention, we also have an agricultural focus group, and it was a major recommendation of that focus group to the task force and then to the town board to make this change.
Randy, you put all the work into the task force. You're the chair of the focus group for farming in this plan. What do you think of the new law?
The only question I asked you earlier is about farmers being grandfathered in that are already operating.
Correct.
Other than that, it was recommended by the agricultural group.
Yeah, there's stipulations. If you read that section, there's stipulations about whether you're in the AR zone or in this new RR zone. There are stipulations to how you can run a farm, setbacks from property lines, etc. We've continued those stipulations. But if someone has an existing use that is closer, it is a non-conforming use. We have a code enforcement office. We don't enforce those things. It's existing. If they propose to build something that was closer to the property line or whatever, there are procedures that go through. You could get a variance. You could do other things for that. But they were good questions.
I was just mentioning to Gil, I think by sharp printing the Y there, they cleared a woods there, a brush area several years ago, and they started farming there. I would believe that was an RR area.
Right.
And that would be an example of, it wasn't used for anything,
Right.
and now they're using it for
And I
farming.
don't know the statistics, I didn't know, but agriculture use goes up and down. Obviously, this is a bad year for farmers with the drought, but we know other communities, we work in Genesee County and other counties, that the number of farms and the expansion of farms has increased over the last couple of years. But then it decreases some years because of problems like this. We have some farmers that are really struggling with drought conditions. Other questions of the town board?
Anybody?
I had asked you a question about if a farmer had a parcel and give his son or
Yep.
a relative a piece of it, it would change the property line, which in this it said you can't
Correct.
have livestock within a certain line, and the answer was,
Right. It's standard for our, again, I keep pointing at my code enforcement officer. You break off a piece of property to sell it, and you're creating, when you break that property line off and you've created a nonconformity for that existing building, that building is no longer 100 feet from the property line, there's resources. You're creating your own hardship. You can go get a variance from that, and that's typically an easy variance, especially if you're creating the hardship and you don't cause a problem to a neighbor. Remember, zoning laws are to protect neighbors, so if I'm creating that and creating a lot, and I don't object to that, or the person buying to that, then they'll probably get a variance for that. You would send them to get a variance for that. I'm sorry, I keep pointing at you, but code enforcement officer, that's his job to look at those things, especially if they're going to be breaking off property or building new structures. Excellent question.
Anybody else on the board? It does sort of seem like a no-brainer to add the RR. I like your idea with the small wording changes that still have to be made, and we can do that at the next meeting or the meeting after.
I did bring it, so anybody wants to see, I brought some zoning maps if they want to see where exactly the RR properties are in the town. I have a couple extras if anybody wants them. This is a nice zoning map of the town.
So, anybody in the room that wishes to say anything on this subject? Any questions on this subject? Hubert?
Right now, the town, again, we're not trying to open that Pandora's box. It is a Pandora's box. I deal with a lot of communities about, we're going to put a stipulation in there that when we change, right now, agricultural uses are not allowed in our zone. So if you own a half-acre lot and you wanted to put chickens or something, the code enforcement officer would say no. Under this change, we're going to make that amendment to the language to not open that door. We'll basically say if you have a residential lot under 2 acres inside or a residential home on a lot, we're not allowing agricultural uses. Right now, there's nothing in the code. The town has talked about, in the past, trying to address that issue. It's a very difficult issue of defining. You can't just say chickens. You have to describe animals, what animals you would allow, the amount of animals you would allow. We may deal with that issue in the future, but right now we're not going to open up that. We don't allow it in any other district. We're not going to allow it in our district. Right now the code is you can't do those things. I guess if you had a pet, my neighbors have a pet pig, and the town still hasn't enforced it, said that that's allowed. It's a pet, but then it's difficult in describing whether it's a pet or a farm animal. I have a difficult time between a pet pig and a farm animal. I guess if they make bacon out of it, it's going to be a farm animal. Don't put that in the paper. My neighbors read that. I'm in big trouble.
Thank you for the question, Hugh. Is there anybody else that has a question or a concern? If there is nothing further, then we will close this
Right,
public
and
hearing.
we're not going to act on this tonight because I want to make some revisions so you can see.
Well, we could act on the seeker motion,
You
correct?
could act on the seeker, yeah.
Get that done and out of the way.
We have all the recommendations on that. You could say it doesn't have environmental, but I would hold off with making those slight revisions. I'd like the town attorney's office to look at that language and the code enforcement officer to look at that language and make sure we're covering that so we're not allowing that. Yep. Right. 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 I think it operates correctly now. Put some protections in place. the non-conforming uses, the non-conforming lots and things like that can continue. We're just trying to help the farmers here, that acknowledging the fact that this is an agricultural area and not create a problem in the future if they stop. Say a farmer died and it took them a year to, what's the expression called, probate or whatever, trying to get someone to take that land over, and then someone takes it over a year later, your laws are you discontinue use for a year, you're done. Now how's he gonna sell that farm? It's no good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Drew. I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing at this time.